Hi, today we're diving deep into a topic that affects us and countless individuals all around us every day. Why it's so difficult to recover from childhood PTSD. I'm talking about complex trauma and why we keep re-traumatizing ourselves. Hi, I'm Carrie McKenna-Reese, a trauma recovery coach, accredited certified complex trauma trainer, and a mentor. And if you've ever wondered why it feels like you're stuck in a cycle of pain and emotional upheaval, despite your efforts to heal and react differently, this video is for you. Let's explore why this happens and how you can start to break free. First, let's understand what childhood PTSD or complex trauma is. Post-traumatic stress disorder in childhood can occur when a child experiences or witnesses or is confronted with traumatic events. These could be anything from abuse, neglect, loss, or even chronic stress. And when these traumatic events happen during the formative years, they can deeply imprint on a child's developing brain, affecting their emotional, mental, and even physical health well into adulthood. And this is not always horror story stuff. This can be seemingly normal day-to-day experiences because trauma has been so normalized in our culture, we don't even realize it's trauma. Now, from birth, we humans have very specific needs that go way beyond food, shelter, and the basics that we all know. And when all these needs are not met consistently enough, trauma wounds are created. So perhaps a parent or a caregiver is a trauma survivor themselves, and they don't have the resources or skills needed to parent properly. They're not aware that children have specific needs, or they don't have access to the necessary resources needed. And this could also be lack of nurturing, or maybe your parents or caregivers weren't emotionally available. Either way, your needs were not met, and trauma is the result. Now, one of the most challenging aspects of recovering from complex trauma is the cycle of re-traumatization. But what exactly does that mean? Re-traumatization, it occurs when a person is exposed to situations that remind their nervous system, their internal being, of their original trauma. You see, childhood trauma derails our intuition, leaving us in a state of feeling very unsafe and hypervigilant. Then these reminders are what some call triggers today. They can happen in relationships, work environments, amidst everyday conversations or situations, making us feel safe, unsafe as adults, putting our nervous system in that same hypervigilant state we were in, acting the same stress responses that were present during the initial trauma we suffered as children, making it feel like we're reliving the experience. Do you ever suddenly feel like a 5-year-old as an adult? And this can even happen during self-reflection, right? Self-reflection, anything at any time can serve as a reminder and trigger a trauma response. Your conscious brain is totally disconnected. It doesn't make the connection between past and present. It happens at an unconscious level. And this is a nervous system memory, not necessarily a conscious memory. This is suppressed or unexpressed feelings and emotions that are trapped in your body. But here's the critical part. Often we don't realize that we're setting ourselves up for these situations. As children, we learn ways to cope. Our brain develops in direct response to our external and internal environment. And with that, our brains are wired to seek out familiar processes, even if those patterns are harmful. We might gravitate towards certain types of relationships because that's what we think love feels like. It's the same sort of love we were given as children, and sometimes that's mere crumbs compared to what we need. And we then dismiss or minimize our real needs because we were taught that they don't matter. We were shown and taught that we didn't deserve anymore. We were taught that we don't matter, right? We were taught to negotiate ourselves, make others happy, to feel a sense of safety, to not have to walk on eggshells in our own home or around certain people, certain relationships. So why do we keep re-traumatizing ourselves? There's a few key reasons. The first one is familiarity with situations. The brain, it seeks out what we know. We don't know how to respond outside of the familiar way, the way our brain formed, and we fear what we don't know. If trauma was a significant part of your childhood, your brain may unconsciously seek out similar situations because those situations feel familiar, right? Even if they're painful, because you feel like you know how to manage them, whether they're toxic or not. Were your parents toxic? Was either of them a gaslighter? Do you find yourself in similar relationships today with friends or lovers? So now let's talk about the second reason we re-traumatize ourselves. If what we suffered as a child, the original trauma, hasn't been fully processed, healed, and integrated, it can resurface in various forms, leading us to reenact situations that mimic the initial trauma. These are those situations, especially in relationships, that have us feeling like we're living the same old story with new faces and new details. But there's a good reason we do this. At a deep subconscious level, we are seeking to do it differently this time. We want to change the outcome of what we suffered, to overcome, to win, to prove ourselves good enough, worthy enough. But all we know is all we know. So we just keep repeating the same patterns until we learn the skill needed to healthily respond and can choose to stop reacting. We go back to the scene of the crime, hoping for a do-over, a better outcome. Our brains, their main goal is to make meaning, and that meaning leave us happy. Our brain really wants us to be happy. And because of that, any unhealed trauma we have will resurface in various ways. So do you find yourself repeating the same patterns over and over again? Do you find yourself receiving the same outcomes? How do you feel this is affecting your life? Right. Now let's talk about the third way we re-traumatize ourselves, and that's self-blame and shame. Many of us with complex trauma, we carry a deep sense of shame and self-blame. As children, we only know to blame ourselves. We don't have the wisdom or the wherewithal to deeply look and understand our parents or life. We don't know to question our parents in our formative years. Therefore, we manifest behaviors that subconsciously punish us. We punish ourselves and reinforce negative beliefs about ourselves, the world, and other people. In what ways do you blame yourself for your upbringing? Do you hold yourself to impossible standards? Are you shaming yourself? And in what ways are you shaming yourself? Now, the fourth way we re-traumatize ourselves, that's emotional triggers and flashbacks. Our daily life is filled with potential triggers, sounds, smells, words, or situations that remind us of the past. And without proper tools to recognize and manage these triggers, they can easily pull us back into the past, into the very state of trauma. Our nervous system is instantly catapulted into the past while our conscious mind is still present, making us think it's our current situation that we're upset about. We may feel confused and disoriented, but believe that the person in front of us is to blame and has done something wrong, even when they haven't. This is what is happening during those moments when we see others or ourselves overreacting. Have you ever suddenly gone from happy to rage in a matter of seconds? Are your emotions in overdrive and out of control? Would it help you to understand why? Okay, so let's talk about breaking free from the cycle of traumatization. It requires intentional and compassionate self-work. The first thing is gaining awareness. Begin by becoming aware of your triggers and the patterns in your life. A good start here is evaluating your sense in the moment. What are they telling you? What are your senses telling you? What do you need in that moment and why? The second thing is self-compassion. It's important to practice self-compassion and understand that the trauma and the re-traumatization is not your fault. It's important for you to be gentle with yourself and recognize that healing is a process and the journey is different for everyone. It starts with personal work, getting to know yourself. It's gaining the psychoeducation needed to understand the trauma you've suffered, the coping mechanisms you've developed, the survival skills you've relied on. It's understanding how trauma is passed on through generations until someone learns how to do things differently and gains the skills to change the dynamic and the health of their life and their family. What is the relationship like between your mother and her mother, or your father and his father? Are there any members of your family that use drugs and alcohol? Has Do they have shopping addictions, put work over family, or go from relationship to relationship? Do you see any generational patterns here? Now, professional support is needed when we're working to break free from the cycle of retraumatization. There's a lot you can do to support yourself on your journey of healing, and there comes a point where we need others as a part of our healing process. We greatly benefit from outside support, from being heard, seen, valued, acknowledged, and have our pain validated. And for some, that's with a trusted friend or loved ones. For others, they feel a healthier option might be to work with a professional. In that case, it's important to do your homework and work with people who get you, and have received adequate trauma training. As a trauma recovery coach, I help clients understand and navigate their triggers. I help them process their unresolved trauma and develop skills, healthier ways of responding and navigating everyday life. How do you feel you would benefit the most from healing? What do you feel would be the best way to go about it? You can also incorporate practices such as mindfulness and grounding techniques into your daily routine to break free from the cycle of retraumatization. This is to help you stay present and reduce the impact of the triggers. The more we practice being present and grounded, the more we increase our capacity to weather the day-to-day storms of life. Whether we are talking about big present moment storms or echoes from the past, expanding our capacity gives us grace and breathing room to live our lives while also doing our inner work to heal those old trauma wounds. So, what is your window of tolerance? Is it slightly open or fully closed? How are you being affected on a daily basis, and what would you like to change? I want to share too that healthy boundaries are essential to break free from the cycle of retraumatization. Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries in our relationships and in our environment is crucial for healing. Boundaries are vital. They protect our emotional space and well-being. How are you when it comes to setting boundaries, and how are you when it comes to honoring them? Now, community and connection, that's also extremely vital in breaking free from the cycle of re-traumatization. Trauma not only derails our intuition, it's the great disconnector. It not only disconnects us from ourselves, but it disconnects us from others as well, right? We're not able to fully heal without reconnecting, not only with our personal authenticity, but also with healthy enough others and supportive, connective community, right? A community who understands our journey as we reparent ourselves and can provide comfort and validation for us. Now, remember, healing from complex trauma, it's a daily choice of reflection, awareness, and embracing change. It's honoring you. It's understanding your needs and having boundaries in place to support them. It's getting the skills to move forward on your terms, healing and breaking the chains so that you are no longer perpetuating trauma. This empowers you to create a life you love and want to wake up every single day and be happy. So small steps along the way is okay, right? As long as you're seeking help when needed, by understanding why we re-traumatize ourselves and taking proactive steps to break the cycle, we can move towards a life filled with more peace, joy, and authenticity. Thank you for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Share it with others if you feel like they will benefit. Let's continue to support each other while we are on our healing journeys. And remember, you're not alone. Until next time, take care of yourself and be kind to yourself.